This brief lecture is called Looking Ahead, and its purpose is to help you plan for the 5th week of the course. During the 5th week of the class, you're required to read and respond to one of 3 books written by minority voices among evangelicals in the United States. We have a book by an African American and an Anglo together. We have a book by a Latino and a book by an Asian. In this brief overview, I will introduce to you each book so you can make your choice and begin reading in preparation for that assignment. I want to inform you now that at the end of this lecture, you need to make a choice of the book, and you need to post it on this assignment in Moodle so I know which book you're going to read. When you post what you're planning to read, then I'll place you in a group in which you have the opportunity to be involved in a discussion with more than just people that have read the same book you have. The oldest of the 3 books, Breaking Down Walls, A Model for Reconciliation in an Age of Racial Strife, was published in 1993. The authors are Raleigh Washington and Glenn Kerain. Kerain is from Ripon, Wisconsin, and he opens the book with his story of attending Moody Bible Institute, which, as you may or may not know, is located in the inner city of Chicago. In that location, Kerain discovered the challenging and often violent world of Black Chicago in the late 1960s. Moved deeply by the poverty, injustice, and alienation that he found among African Americans, Kerain and then later his wife dedicated their lives to working in a Black neighborhood in Chicago. Their experience was always difficult, often painful, and after nearly 20 years, Kerain was so abused and wounded by the Blacks he was working with that he found it difficult to trust any Black partner in ministry. Raleigh Washington found his way out of segregation in the Deep South through a career in the U.S. Army. Yet racism was always present for him and challenging him at every step of the way in the Army for his assignments in service and also for his promotions. At the peak of his career, at the rank of lieutenant colonel, enemies that he had accumulated over a significant period of time blocked his promotion and had him drummed out of the Army 2 days before he qualified for a 20-year pension. The power of these stories is how God brought these 2 men together, both deeply wounded by racism, but to commit to one another to build a ministry of trust and reconciliation between Blacks and whites in an evangelical free church in Chicago. Together they discovered powerful, biblically centered principles essential to build on the ground a community of Blacks and whites committed and practicing reconciliation in the midst of wider racial strife. This book is out of print, but it is available on Amazon. You can get new copies for $3.99, and you can get used copies for 1 cent plus shipping. So if you want to read this, there's no reason why you can't access it. Stan Perea was a very smart, aggressive young Latino radical in Colorado. And in his life, he had the opportunity to go to the University of Colorado, where he earned his bachelor's. And then from that, had many opportunities which led him to establish an Hispanic accounting firm in Colorado, which was very, very successful. In his 2004 book, The New America, The America of the Mushu Burrito, Perea tells a story of how he spent his first 37 years pursuing the American dream. And although he was very successful, he found it empty to the point of suicide. At that critical moment in his career, Stan surrendered his life to Jesus Christ and left accounting to attend Denver Theological Seminary. From seminary, he became pastor in the Reformed Church of America in Colorado and a leader among Latino and Latina evangelicals. In this book, Perea reflects on the radical changes immigrants are bringing to America and to the pursuit of the American dream, arguing that the major tensions in America are not Democrat and Republican, but rather extreme forms of individualistic and enmeshed positions in culture. That word enmeshed means cohesive, conform to a group. Perea reflects on how these extremes play out in personal visions of family, education, justice, business, politics, and in the church. Perea's voice provides a lens for us on the social forces that are pulling American society and culture apart. In a review of this book, David Maldonado says that the book offers a rich discussion and insights into the current social debates around immigration, homosexuality, race relations, religion, politics, and multiculturalism. Perea is at heart a deeply committed evangelical Christian and pastor. This book invites you to hear a Latino voice on how culture in the mind and culture on the ground together fuel conflict and create factions in local churches across America. This book is available in the Cokesbury Fuller Bookstore, and I believe it will be available for $12. Soong-Chan Rah was founding pastor of a multi-ethnic ministry in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and is now Associate Professor of Church Growth and Evangelism at North Park Theological Seminary in Chicago. In his 2010 book, Many Colors, Cultural Intelligence for a Changing Church, Rah provides a biblically centered reflection on the topic of culture and a very nice overview of many of the topics we've covered in the first 3 weeks of this course. Rah's primary interest is in the local church and how pastors may better understand a multicultural worldview, what I've called culture in the mind, and how people in local churches make relational connections, what I've called culture on the ground. And then how to work through the issues of power in their congregational life. Rah highlights different cultural sensitivities regarding guilt and shame, and direct and indirect confrontation, which are both very important factors in Asian cultural life. In the second half of his book, Rah gives focus to how pastors may use cultural intelligence on the ground to help people build trust and to work together in a multicultural community engaged in ministry. Bringing some very specific insights from his Asian cultural context, Rah highlights storytelling, hospitality as a central part of worship, and going deep relationally with those to whom we hope to minister. Finally, Rah appropriately argues that systems thinking and practice are essential for leaders who aspire to effective multicultural ministries. This book is available on Amazon and in the Cokesbury Fuller Bookstore. The price in the bookstore is $14.99. During week 5, you are required to post your reflections to the questions that follow on the book you have read and participate in a forum discussion with your classmates. The key questions to guide you in your reading are in the forum itself, but I will also state them to you here. The first one, what are 2 or 3 primary messages the author you are reading wants you to hear in these stories and reflections? And of course, each author will be different. Washington and Karen will have one message, Perea has a different one, and Rah has also a different message. What are their primary messages? You're only required to read one. 2, what insights have you gained about culture in the mind and culture on the ground from your reading? And how does this affect how you might lead more effectively in a local church? But more importantly, given these differences, how can we reconcile our differences in Christ? Third question, as you reflect on your own cultural biases, how does this book challenge you to hear new voices, listen for other perspectives, and rethink how you engage others in multicultural ministry? I hope you reflect on these questions. I'm sure you will enjoy whatever book you choose, and I would remind you that after you've heard this, think through and make your selection of books and post it to this particular assignment so that I know what book you're reading and can organize your participation in the forum in 2 weeks. Thank you very much.